It's Lil Baby.
Welcome to episode 20 of Conversations with Chai. I am your host, Ihram Chowdhury, aka Little Baby Ram Ram. With me, huge fan, and my Bengali brother, bro. It feels crazy to say this, right? Has directed crazy music videos, right? The Lamborghini High music video, the New Level music video, Armani White. It's crazy. I have with me Shomi Patwary.
Thank you.
Hey, Shomi, appreciate you doing this. And I kind of just want to start, right? Because I have such a personal interest in this, right? Like, how did you even get to the place where you're working on potentially one of the most, like, for me, one of the most influential style collectives in ASAP Mob, but also one of the most fire music videos, period, in the Lamborghini High video? Like, walk me through the beginning. Like, how did it get to that?
We'll probably just time travel in different places.
Absolutely, let's do this.
Because there are different reasons why different things have happened. But as far as the Rocky Connect, the ASAP Mob Connect, that's because of my brother, Tash P. He's 7 years younger than me. And my brother, he was always around the studio and celebrities and things like that just because when I got my foot in the door, I would take my younger brother with me.
Mm-hmm.
So he sort of learned the game. He had that advantage because, like, for me, it's like, oh man, I'm a kid in Virginia Beach. I don't want to be a programmer.
Mm-hmm.
Typical, South Asian story where it's like your parents are like, art, what's that? What's media? So we'll go into that later. But my brother, he's the one who was actually the one that introduced me to the mob. So he was their producer. So he produced Purple Kisses for Rocky. He produced Hood Pope for Ferg and a few other tracks. I think these are like 6 or 7 tracks for ASAP Mob. And so when he was producing music for them, I was already in the game, especially like on the media side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Not so heavy in the video yet. Like I was doing videos, but like it was only just people I was comfortable with, people that I came up with, Luckily, I came up with Pusha and all those guys.
So talk about that, like the come up, right? Like, what is that come up like, right? Because you told me you immigrated here in 1990, right? You're an older, like now Bengali, right?
Yeah.
But how do you, as like a Bengali who, none of us are even in these spaces. We're barely in these spaces now, right? How at that time are you like, yo, I'm gonna work? Was it an active, yo, I'm gonna go work for this, or like, how did that even come up?
I mean, I think Bengali people, like, a lot of us, we want that stability because if you do see your parents struggle, you don't want to take that risk. So you go the stable route. So you always kind of have a backup plan. So like my backup plan is like, all right, like I'll be a programmer, I guess. I love video games.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll do something that's kind of close to media, I guess. So I was going to school for computer science.
Mm-hmm.
The school ODU. A lot of like Indian and Bengali kids all doing computer science.
Yeah. Typical.
I felt like super outcast. Like I felt like an outcast. Just like they were really serious about it. For me, I was kind of a nerd growing up. I know like the whole term nerd doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But like I'm about to age myself. I'm 40. I'm about to be 42. I'm 41 right now. But like growing up, there was an actual thing as nerd. Like, Like we were the few that had computers. My dad, he was a accountant, and so I loved video games. And I tricked him into like buying me a Pentium processor computer.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "Yo, Dad, like this is gonna help me like do all this homework."
Yeah. The lies.
I just want to play Doom.
Yeah, the lies that we all tell our parents.
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
oh, this is gonna make me better.
So,
this is gonna make me in school.
I think the first thing you do is you figure out how do you get these tools, right? But you're naive. You don't know like, oh, there needs to be an industry in order to even make it.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of that ignorance is how I got here. Because if I knew like, oh, like there's such thing as like Hollywood and LA and New York, and that's the route you got to go to make it, I think I would have been like disenchanted already, or like I would have been too early in the game thinking this is a pipe dream. So because of my ignorance, and I was lucky because I had older cousins and younger cousins, and they all love music so much.
Mhm.
And my cousin Kochi, he was like a DJ. And so like I loved house parties. Like growing up, my
Mhm.
cousins, they were much older than me and they would always put me onto like the coolest music, whether it was underground hip hop or like early on, like listening to like, I was like 13, I discovered the Prodigy. Not Prodigy the rapper, but the Prodigy, the electronic group,
Yeah.
right? So I was like this kid seeing my cousins like throw their own little raves, right? I was like, oh, I love this shit. Like, dude, this is so sick. Like, this kind of music is so different because it was inspired by hip hop and I loved hip hop. And little did I know that, um, I was listening to Teddy Riley and he had a group called Rex and Effects. And I love that group. Little did I know that the guy in my hometown had produced it. So, like, in 6th grade, I had a teacher, Miss Williams. She's like, yeah, my son made that song. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like, what?
Yeah,
Like, we're in
yeah.
Virginia Beach. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Miss Williams, I didn't know, was Pharrell's mom, Pharrell Williams.
Yo, that's
my 6th grade teacher. And me and my best friend, Philip Lee, both immigrants, he was Chinese. We were both like just joking or like, what is she talking about? Her son made this record. So didn't know years later it would connect, right? So years later, I'm a fan of what Pharrell does. Just because I love music. My cousin, who was a DJ, was spinning with Chad Hugo of the Neptunes at these nightclubs and stuff. So like just being around music, I'm always chasing after like the coolest music that's coming out. Just part of that scene, naturally as a fan. And that got me closer, right? To like that circle.
Are you now, while this is all happening, right? Like
high school.
So high school, are you like actively like, hey, I'm going to build into this space? Or are you just like right now, like, I'm just a fan?
I'm just a fan.
Okay.
I'm a fan, but like I'm an amateur producer, music producer. I'm an amateur web designer. I'm an amateur, it's embarrassing, rapper. I always go through that phase. Like, so like.
I think that's like a under talked about phase, right? That phase of like, yo, I just want to be. Like, I think that's like a lot of like
creative.
I think like every creative like starts off there, right? Like, I just want to be creative. Like, I always joke around. I'm all like, yo, I'm a failed hip hop dancer. I'm a failed rapper.
Yep.
I'm a failed actor, right? I'm so many of those things. That's such because I just knew, like, again, I wanted to be in like a creative space.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, I was having fun with it. I think that's how I got through college too, right? I was just like, oh, this is just fun. Like, I got out of my video game phase. Now I want to just make music and make beats just because somebody from my area is doing that and he's doing it very successfully, which is obviously Pharrell. Then you find out Timbaland's from this area too. Then you find out this other producer, Knots, who was like producing for Busta Rhymes, working with Jay Dilla. He's also from there. So I'm like, yo, Pharrell coined this term, something in the water. There's something in the water. And I'm just like, I got to get with like one of these circles, one of these spaces. And so, like me and my friends, we are just up to no good. My parents leave town to go to Bangladesh for like a month, and I decided to throw a house party. And so, like, when I threw that house party, there's this guy, Nicholas F., aka Nick Fury, who came by, and we turned my brother's closet into like a studio. And I was also part of the NERD forum.
Mm-hmm.
This is before social media. We were on forums, and I connected with these producers who drove down from Jersey, my boy Anoop. Right? So Anoop was like a big fan of Nicholas F. I'm like, yo, Nick's gonna be at my party. Y'all should come down. We'll throw down some beats, get him to record on them. And there's this other kid, Jacob Kasher, who shows up, also recording in our closet. Little did I know, years from now, Jacob Kasher will be the guy that's like writing songs for Morgan Wallen and like executive producing Maroon 5. And this kid's also from Virginia Beach.
Yo, this is.
And then Nicholas F. years later would be doing albums with Drake. Okay, so this shit is crazy. We're just having fun, throwing house parties, getting into trouble. I remember a fight broke out that night, and I was like, oh shit, I'm never throwing a party again. Like, luckily my parents were gone for a month, so like we clean up really well. Go to Bangladesh, come back with them. Like I was gonna, because I was still like, I think we were in summer classes or something.
Yeah.
So like after my summer classes ended, I went to Bangladesh too. Came back. I'm like, damn, I can't believe I got away with this. We threw this crazy party with all these rappers at my house. Fights broke out. All this crazy shit happened. Parents never found out. I got away with it. But because of that party, like I met all these people that were connected to Pharrell. And so that's like the origin story, really. Like, I took the risk of throwing a party. It was like Virginia Beach's Project X.
Yeah.
You know?
And then just kind of fell in. You said something, and I know you said like Pharrell coined the phrase, right? Something in the water.
Yeah.
Right. And I like kind of want to talk about it because that's like something that until you said that, I didn't know how to describe it, but that's exactly how I feel. That's exactly how I feel, right? Like when you said that, I said, oh, that's exactly how I describe the current space of like what I like now trying to coin as like South Asian like new media, right?
Yeah.
Like what you said, like, hey, like the industry really, the outside industry didn't really exist, right? Because it's not mainstream yet. It's not mainstream yet.
Dude,
And
I
it
didn't know
becomes
any artists to look up to that looked like us. There's only one group I knew, which is Corner Shop. I don't know if you guys remember that, but it was an indie band named Corner Shop, and they were on MTV. And I was like, oh, this guy's brown. Okay.
But you talk about it, right? Like that's the pipe dream.
Yeah,
Like that's the pipe dream. Like
these guys are living it. They're like on MTV. That's the only person I knew of that was in the industry. And then I dig a little deeper. There's another group called White Town. Didn't realize he was Indian.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit. Like one or two examples, right? Other than Bollywood, one or two examples
in the spaces that we care about.
Yeah,
right. Like in the spaces
more
that
the
we
Western space, right? Like these people are big in America and Europe, right? So like, still felt like a pipe dream, but I'm still naive. So I got these friends that are coming over. I start hanging out with them, getting into trouble, sneaking out of my house to go to these studios to intern and stuff. One day, one of Pharrell's artists who had just signed to Pharrell named Family shows up at the studio I'm at, where Nick records out of. And I was like, yo, that's like Pharrell's artist. Let me just like come up to him and be like, yo, whatever you need, I'm there, you know? And so I give him my info. He doesn't reach back out, doesn't answer my calls. Not like, you know, I mean, dude signed a Def Jam at the time. Like, I'm some brown kid that's just like, hey, let me do this or that. Like, just making up stuff. Like, I was promising stuff that I didn't know how to do.
Like, we all do. We all do, right? Like, we're just like, yo, like, I wanted to just be in the space. I'm down to do anything.
But Pharrell had this record label at the time, Star Trek, and he signed Khalees. He signed Roscoe P. He signed the Calypse, which is Pusha T and Malice. Yes. He signed Family. And so I'm just like, oh, well, two of these artists are in Virginia. Even if I can't get to Pharrell, let me get to these two artists. And then there was a third artist that was a rock band. And this guy named Doug Dozier was like an A&R for Pharrell. He used to like take NERD to band practice when they were young. So he connects with me and he's like, you know, you just can't like be in that space that early. Like, yo, like these guys are around Hype Williams. You can't be doing their videos, you know? I was like, dude, I'll do anything. So I did what I could, which is like be that nerdy kid and get on the internet, offer to do them their website. So now I'm using my college degree of knowing object-oriented programming and HTML. So I'm like offering these artists websites. And this is like early 2000s. Nobody cares about websites really like that. So it wasn't like a big risk to like, oh, okay, I'll let this guy do your website. So now I'm doing websites. Not the most glamorous thing, but it's the closest thing for me to get in the industry. And my parents are cool with it. They're like, oh, it's web design. Like, cool. Like,
while you're doing that, you're just like also building the relationships, right?
Yeah,
like
building the relationships.
That being the most important thing, right? Like
I'm using web design as a stepping stone. And then I'm like downloading bootleg Adobe Photoshop and like designing mixtape covers now. And so like, luck would have it, Family was having label issues. The Clips, they were on their second album having label issues. The Clips needed a mixtape cover. I'm some kid that's just messing around with Photoshop. And they're like, you want to do one? I was like, yeah, sure. I designed the Clips mixtape cover.
Which mixtape is this?
We got it for cheap.
That's crazy.
So I designed that cover.
That's your cover?
Yeah. I designed that cover. Then Family's going through label issues. He wants to do a mixtape. We do this mixtape called Grand Theft Ghetto, which is like a mock, like a parody of GTA.
Yeah.
So I'm like multitasking and like digging up all these things on the internet forums, learning all these things. This is not like the era of TikTok or YouTube. You can't just look up a video that's easy to follow. You really gotta dig in to learn this stuff. And so I'm going outside of my realm of web design, learning how to use a camera. And I'm also in Virginia Beach, so we're like kids that had cameras anyways, because Virginia Beach is what we call like East Coast LA, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Virginia Beach is like this surf skate area. Black kids were skating, which was like not a thing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, anywhere else other than maybe in New York.
You kind of hear it in the sound that comes out of Virginia Beach too, right?
Yeah,
like the Pharrell, like the NERD
Calls
sound.
himself Skateboard P for that reason.
Yeah,
right?
It's like such like a, I don't know, like it's like not like a New York hip hop heavy sound, right? It's like so much more fun.
It's our own Mid-Atlantic sound, you know, which is like really trippy. You know, they call themselves the Neptunes, but like you got to understand, like Virginia Beach, our mascot is a Neptune, King Neptune.
Mm-hmm.
They call themselves the Neptunes. They're into all this outer space stuff. I was like, me being a nerd, and then Pharrell having a group called NERD, like I really connected with those guys.
Yeah.
And then I'm doing all this like internship work. Don't care about the money at all. Like my parents weren't like rich, but we went from the struggle of like coming up in the 90s of my parents doing like multiple jobs to eventually kind of making it, going into this upper class lifestyle, right? So the upper class lifestyle afforded me the luxury of like my parents saying, you don't got to get a job, but make sure you're doing your studies, right? Like make sure you're like doing good in school. That's all we care about. So they never pressured me to have a job. And I'm being honest, like that's just maybe a privilege not everybody has. But I had that privilege of like my parents not forcing me to get a job. So that time I had where most kids would get summer jobs, like in the beginning I had a summer job, but like by year 3 in college, like, nope, I'm just gonna like design flyers for these rappers for their parties. I'm gonna do mixtape covers. I'm gonna do websites. So once I did the Clips one and the Family one, it got the attention of Pharrell because he was like, oh, these like mixtapes are getting like good feedback, you know? In the meantime, while I'm doing that, there's this guy named Aubrey Graham that's coming down to Virginia because he's a big fan of this other kid that put us on, Nicholas F. Drake, right? So Drake is coming down to Virginia Beach. He's a huge fan of Pharrell as well. Ironically, of the Clips as well.
Not so much anymore.
Yeah.
Not so much anymore.
Unfortunately. But at the time, he was.
Yeah.
And so now I'm like cool with the whole NERD Star Trek camp. And so I've got this access to them. Drake is in the process of putting out like his 3rd mixtape. And while he's in that process of putting out a mixtape, he really wants to do a record with the Clips. Pusha T's like, yeah, I don't know about this. Not because he was hating. He was actually, at the time, he was a fan of Drake as a musician, right? But Malice was like, yo, this kid is on Degrassi. My kid wants to act. Maybe he could like give him a few pointers. I'll do the record. Drake wires me the money for the feature. I get him on this record with Malice. It's like his first real feature. And he puts Nicholas F on the remix. So like,
what's the feature?
It's a song called Do What You Do.
Okay.
So I got the acapellas from Drake. He emails it. My friend has a studio. Malice spits his verse. We put it together. Nick sends his verse. It's this track. It's not getting the kind of traction, I think, because this is early internet. So you got to figure out like how do you get it in a place where people could like really get it out there. So now this is like 2006. Drake has this record. Clips has a mixtape out. But I'm like trying to figure out, well, you know, how do I like get this to like Miles did the record, but he didn't even like go back to listen to it. It's whatever. It's like a feature or whatever. He forgot the fact that Drake is an actor at the time. He forgot what we were talking about even. So they're in their own world. Now I'm on the NERD chat. There's like this chat, internet relay chat, IRC. This is some really nerdy shit. But I'm on that too. And there's this DJ named DJ Benzie, who's from Connecticut. He connects with me and he's like, yo, I want to do this like remix type of like mixtape for the Clips. Can you like make that happen? Can you, I'll let you executive producer or whatever. I'm like, all right, let me reach out to like the engineer. And so we take all the vocals from the first mixtape that the Clips put out. So I get all these vocals. Pusha T comes over for other stuff that we're doing. I'm like, yo, can you do me a few like drops for this DJ that's like just coming up? I share whatever. I'll do you a favor. So now Pusha T gets me all these drops. We got all these records on there. That now people that we never thought were gonna blow up are part of. So Diplo, this is 2006.
Yeah.
Nobody knows who Diplo is.
Yeah.
Diplo does a remix on there. There's a few other producers that all blew up, did remixes on there.
It's crazy to see like now, like the point in time that you're talking about, right? It's like a weird like inflection point because you don't know like the
Pre-blog era.
You don't know that these stars are being created in front of you, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's like people like that are in like the South Asian like or just like creative space currently. I think that's like the part that we don't understand because you even said it at a young age, right? You wanted to be like, oh, I want to work in the industry already, right?
Yeah.
But you don't realize like you network like more laterally than you do diagonally up and down, right? Because you don't know that these are the stars that are being made in the current space, right?
There were like a few stars I knew were stars, but like I didn't know Drake was gonna be a star. I didn't know like Diplo was gonna be a thing.
And you're just doing it not because, oh, I think they're gonna be stars. You're doing it because like,
just
yo, these are the people that are around, that are creating,
that's our circle.
I think, that's my circle, right? And I think that's like the part that we don't really understand, right?
Yeah.
We essentially build out who is quote unquote next, right? It's like nobody thinks that. Like you're not like looking like, oh shit, like Pharrell's about to be Pharrell, and like you know what I'm saying?
This
like,
is MySpace era.
Yeah.
Okay, this is MySpace era. And I think the funniest thing is, you know, they say you can never delete everything off the internet. So it's funny. This is MySpace era. If you go to this one website called archive.org, you could pull up my MySpace. And the way me and Drake actually really, really connected, this is a South Asian gem now, is I grew up loving Russell Peters.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had embedded a Russell Peters comedy set, but Russell Peters was a Canadian comedian, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Drake sees that on my page. He comments, he's like, yo, I didn't know you know about Russell Peters. I'm like, of course. He's like brown dude, like only guy we know in the entertainment industry. And so I guess Drake at the time was a fan of Russell Peters. So he's just like leaving a comment about a Russell Peters stand-up set. And then he's like rapping about me being some internet guru or something.
Yeah.
At the time.
It's crazy.
That's how he was looking at me. That's how Drake was looking at me, as like some internet like.
But that's how kind of Drake started off, right?
Yeah.
Do you know Soumya Krishnamurthy?
Of
just
course.
Wrote a book, The Fashion Killer, right? She talks about how she was like an Aubrey's angel, right?
Yeah.
Like that MySpace era, that blog era that was like, yo, like these people, like, bro, Drake's just on the internet. He's just like a regular kid from Canada who has a MySpace, right?
Yep.
And you're like starting to see like, that's where like the cult building and that's where the culture building really happens, right? In those early stages where it is relationships
Everything
like that
is
off of the
natural,
strength,
though.
right? It's organic.
It's organic.
Because I think that's the part is like, and anybody who's creative goes through this, right? Like where you start just like DMing like crazy people that you actually have no opportunity to work with.
Yeah.
But it's more so like the organic ones, right? It's like obviously like what you're talking about is the synergy of, hey, I'm just building with people, I'm building my skills, and the network is organically growing, right? You don't know that Drake's going to be Drake at this point, right?
No.
It's an organic...
he offered me to manage him, and I was like, whatever. Like, I don't know about this.
Yeah, like again, you don't know, right? Like when you're building,
I
in
kind of
those
dismissed it.
When you're building in those spaces, you don't know that.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
You're just like, who the fuck is this kid from? Just because we look at peers, I look at my peers now like that, right?
Yeah.
I don't know who's next. No. Right? Like, I don't know who's like the rapper that's like kind of nice from our place that's going to blow.
Right.
I don't see that until another 3 to 5 years, right? And that's why like people like overlook the people that are to their left and right for those people above. And then that's the biggest disservice. Because imagine in that time that you're like, yo, I'm too good to do this like label, like this cover for this random mixtape for this random artist. Like who gives a shit, right?
Right.
But because these are my people.
Yeah,
these are my peoples.
This is a circle. There's a kid named B Major that ended up being big. Nick, all these guys. We were all like, the glue was Pharrell though. We all met each other because we were all on Pharrell's forum. So it's like party next door, all of us. We were all on the forum. So like party next door used to go by his like real name at the time. And so he was on the forum. Diplo was on the forum. MIA was on the forum. Tyler the Creator's on the forum. There needs to be a whole documentary just on the Star Trek forum because we were all on it. Janelle Monáe.
What is the name of the forum?
Star Trek.
So okay.
Yeah, StarTrekMusic.com.
Okay.
Yeah, shout out to Rob Walker. Like, you know, Rob Walker still has Star Trek. Rob Walker was Pharrell's manager at the time.
Okay.
Well, the whole Neptune's manager, you know, and he co-owned Star Trek with Pharrell. And so like, you know, we loved music and there was something magnetic about Pharrell that just like brought us together, you know?
But that's how cultures blow up,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like it's usually like, again, like when we talk about like you're a hip hop head, so I can talk 1,000% hip hop with you, right? Anytime you see like the guy go up, it's all the ancillary people that also kind of go up with. Like we don't like you ever see that tree of like how many businesses Rock Nation is responsible for
100%.
or Rockefeller is responsible for, right? It's like, yeah, because Jay blew up. Everybody within under that ecosystem now comes up with to a level. The levels all determined on the individual people. But essentially that's what happened with Pharrell, right? Like Pharrell is the guy at the time.
Yeah.
But then how many stars do you get out of that?
Right.
Push, right? Like
all these people. He created a lot of stars, a lot of businesses, energized the whole community. So like, you know, everybody has their opinion on him, but like, you know, as people get older, you know, the new generation probably doesn't see him the way we see him, you know?
No, but that is just that something that happens with the course of time. I think we overlook overlook our OGs, right? Because I'm sure there's gonna be people that come up, right? And they're like, whoever's in the space.
Young kids don't talk about
don't...
Quincy Jones, but like I know what Quincy Jones is, you know? So for us, Pharrell's the Quincy Jones for us.
Yeah, because
take away any personal shit about him, whatever it is, he was Quincy Jones for us. And like I said, he sort of enabled sometimes you don't have to do much, but just be influential, and that enough can spark an entire community and spark entire movements. And that enough will open the doors. Because the other thing that happened because of Pharrell, that was sort of magnetic, was I met my first director that was Indian, that was brown, in the industry. But it happened to be, he was on another level. He was at MTV, Joseph Patel, who, shout outs to Joseph, he became a mentor. Joseph Patel, who just won an Emmy and Grammy for Summer of Soul. He produced that.
Okay.
So I met Joseph through MySpace. He had a show called My Block on MTV. He happened to be doing a lot of... he knew Pharrell and them early on because I think he was a writer early on. Like, this dude, like, interviewed the Red Hot Chili Peppers when he was 16, you know? So Joseph's my OG, you know? So Joseph... and I connected because he came to Virginia and I connected him with all the local people here and there. And then he had people too that he connected with while he was down there. But like the camp that I was around was Pharrell's camp, obviously. But then there was this other guy, Danger Hands. Danger Hands, for those who don't know, he co-produced the second Justin Timberlake album.
Love Sex.
Brittany,
Love Sex Future Sounds, okay.
Co-produced that album, which was one of my favorite albums at the time, and he co-produced Nelly Furtado's album with Timbaland. So like he was co-producing all this stuff.
Is that the way I are and Promiscuous?
Yes.
Okay.
So he co-produced all that.
Yeah.
Again, nothing happens overnight because when I knew Danger, this dude was literally just a guy that was at the church playing piano and working construction. I remember he had a friend of his that came to my house. Danger's next to me, in construction boots, and he was still wearing his construction boots, but he just came back from the studio with Tim. Still got dirty boots. He's like, yo, for some reason, Justin's really feeling the beats that I'm working on with Tim. We'll see what happens. Now, this guy still has dirty Timberland boots on, and he's still at the church playing piano. Me and him are just like working on our own little indie projects at the time. And a year later happens, these albums come out, and now Danger has co-produced two of the biggest albums of that year, two of the biggest pop albums of the year. And then he goes to like do Wonder Woman for Trey Songz and the first DJ Khaled single, We Take It Over, produces that. What people don't know though.
Oh, come on.
Dude, so my best friend was in the studio when that was happening.
Yeah.
So my best friend was the one that was hustling flyers with me. And so like our crew of people were like, we were traveling. But we were doing whatever. Like some of my homies were in the streets.
It's crazy.
Hustling, like
it's crazy.
doing all kinds of shit.
It's crazy. And this is like the part that's so fun for me to talk to somebody who's been in the creative space for as long as you have and like is a part of an older generation.
Yeah.
'Cause I look at like people think that I gas like the people around, like my peers, right? Where I'm like, I tell Anik, I tell like Kahani, I tell Ani, I'm like, yo, y'all are like living legends that are just in the making, right? Because like the synergies that I start seeing, I'm like, yo, y'all are, you know, Anik to the level that he's doing it at is a pretty good level. And I'm like,
I mean, you got to think, man, Anik used to come to my house like in eating at my house in my
Bro,
apartment in Queens. Like,
and
you know,
now
this-
where the come up is, right? And the come
And
up
Ani
isn't
too.
and
Like,
the come up
Ani-
isn't done, right?
Ani was my coworker.
Yeah.
But during I had a 9 to 5 phase when I moved to New York. So like, and I'll go back to that. But like, you know, for me, the most, and I'll tell you this now, and I tell this to every creator who gets jaded as they go through the industry, and it can be a very jaded, an industry that can get you very jaded and turn you off because so many personalities and so many vultures, I would say, too, in the industry.
There's a lot of politicking.
Yeah, there's a lot
right?
of politics. That's the shit that'll turn you off to the business. And I didn't get turned off to the business till I started making money.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was the unhappiest making money.
Because right now it's all fun, right?
Yeah.
Like we're all buddy, right?
Dude.
Like there's no money. We all love each other because it's all fun and games, right?
And I had two phases of this.
But as soon as the money come up, everybody starts like,
it's no longer fun.
it's no longer fun.
Because now you're like doing it for the bread. Like, we all got to make a living. And the first sign of this, okay, Pharrell was working on a pilot in 2006 for a show called That's What I Wanted that I told you the dude Doug Dozier who connected me with Pharrell and them to begin with was doing a pilot. He's like, yo, can you make us a logo for this pilot? And honestly, it was the first podcast ever. Like, to me, a video podcast. A format before YouTube existed. Another homie of mine, Kenna, was trying to give us a platform, and this is before YouTube. He was working with the family, the Gettys, who's funding this thing called Video Something. It was way too ahead of its time before YouTube existed. We're like creating content for it, and Pharrell's like helping us fund it too, like the programming for it. And I make a logo just for fun, and I'm not even expecting to get paid. And he gives me a check. It says Pharrell Williams, signed for $200.
Yeah.
It's not big, you know? I feel so bad now. I should have like cashed that check in. When I took it to the bank, they were like grilling me, calling his personal assistant and everything. Like, is this check legit? I'm like, dude, it's $200. Why are you grilling me about? No, it's not because it's $200.
But at that time, it's like
Pharrell.
the biggest thing, right? And you're just like, yo, I just need the money, right? But now, in the hindsight, you're like, yo, how much would you pay? How much would you pay out of that check right now?
I would pay $2,000
to have that check right now.
To have that check right now, just to like put it up on a wall on a plaque.
Yeah, no,
you know?
Again, right? Like, I think we miss those moments as they happen because we don't really know that they are the moments.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, they are, man. Like I said, my best moments were when we were just young and hungry. You know, like when you're young and hungry, you only care about getting on by any means necessary, but you also care and you have so much passion. When the money comes in, and I'll go into it, it's a whole different thing. But the money has to be a factor eventually because, like, my parents worked their ass off so I could just fuck off, you know? But I don't know if I'm allowed to curse.
No, absolutely.
Okay,
I fucking
you
curse
bleep
all
me
the
out.
time. No.
I don't want to curse too much because I got a kid now, but
no.
like,
I think it's crazy. Like, and I think that's the part that's like really like lost and like upsets me. I think we all focus on the money too early, and it ruins what the culture really is.
The biggest advice I give to kids, and it might come from a place of
Shomi, you can tell Shomi is really a dad. He's like, when I tell kids, I'm like, oh no, Shomi's
the biggest
dad.
advice, I give to like kids that are coming up now is like, if you're doing it for the money, you might as well not do it because you might as well get any 9-to-5 job because when you're actually in the industry, all that glamour stuff goes out the window. Like, you're now doing payroll, you're worried about insurance, you're worried about crew that needs to be paid. And I got the first hint of that when I got my first big check from Pharrell. It was like after I got I went from a $200 check to I'll tell you what the next check was because I wasn't really charging people like that. You know, I was just doing $50 flyers. I had finally graduated that same year, 2006. 2006 is a really special time for me because I was around this circle of all these hungry people, also around the stars. I was, I graduated a little late just because like I was just like delaying some courses and stuff. But I had finally graduated. It took me 6 years to graduate officially. But when I had graduated, I remember I had this shoebox full of just cash that I made from doing mixtapes and flyers, just hustling on websites. My dad didn't know about it. Graduate. We have a graduation dinner. My dad's like, so what's the next plan? You gonna like intern for Microsoft or something? I'm like, nah, I kind of got an internship with like Pharrell and these guys. My dad's like, I don't know who that is. I don't care. What are you gonna do? I was like, well, I have some money saved up. He's like, how much? It's like 10 grand. He's like, okay, what do you want to do with that? I was like, I want to get a studio. It's like, studio? Like, what is that? I was like, it's a studio. Like, I want to have this thing where local artists can come and like get more flyers from us and web design. It's like, you sure? Like, my dad is kind of like hinting at that's not gonna be sustainable. You're in Virginia Beach. How many rappers are you gonna come across? But 2006 was a year where everybody was just turned up on like wanting to get on because Pharrell and Timbaland and Danger Hands, all these guys are making it. So everybody feels like they could be in that level and make it too. So that's like it energized the whole community.
Interesting part of like that, like art, like culture building, right? Not like the perspective that I have of like our current culture, right? Is like I think when you see like anybody do it at like a decent level, you're like, oh, it becomes possible, right? Like you're talking about like
communities, everything.
Not having like a South Asian person in that space makes you like think like, oh, it's not possible. But there's a ton more Shomi Patwary's coming up the pipeline that get to be that because they've seen, hey, like there is somebody South Asian in that space doing that, right? I talk about like, again, like Ani being relevant, like bigger than like just themselves or bigger than just the South Asian, like small New York community. I'm like, oh, that inspires everybody, whether they're not even in that industry. The trickle-down
effect is crazy.
The trickle-down effect is crazy because everybody becomes thinking like, oh, that's all possible, right? I can be that. And then this is the beautiful benefit of it. In that self-interest, it just pushes the entire culture forward. Because think about it. I'm sure you're about to go into it, right? How much great fire stuff, fire things came out of everybody wanting to get on because of Pharrell. It makes everybody young, hungry, and push things.
Yeah, and the thing is, the other thing about Pharrell is like, his partner was an Asian dude. Chad Hugo, he's Filipino. I grew up in Virginia Beach. All my friends are like, we didn't have that many like South Asians, but we still consider them brown Filipinos, right? All my friends were Filipino growing up, and we could really connect. There was like this immigrant experience that really that you really bond over, right? And so when we saw like, yo, there's a Filipino dude that's part of this group called the Neptunes and NERD, that's like getting it like that, like working with Jay-Z and every big star, dude, it is possible. So again, you just need a few examples and a few folks to inspire you. But I wasn't looking at the money they were making. It wasn't like me seeing Pharrell's Rolls Royce that inspired me. It was just the discography, right? So going back to 2006, I graduated. I got this shoebox full of money. And so does my friend Philip. We're best friends since 6th grade. And also, we're also charged up because we realized Pharrell's mom was our 6th grade teacher. I was like, it's got to be like the universe, the way it aligned, it's meant to be, that we all, got here. And so we put up our money, take a leap of faith. It's the first leap of faith in my life when it came to my career. And I said, you know what, let's do this. Like, let's open up a studio. We opened up a studio. I pretty much... all the creatives I could find in Virginia Beach that were like web designers, videographers, we all put them in one space because there weren't that many. There's like 2 kids that were just doing videos, only 2 other kids that were editing, a few photographers, a few web designers. We put them all in one place. And the company was Illusive Media, which is my company that we started in college for fun. It was originally a record label, turned it into a media thing because I was like, you know what? The media thing seems more realistic. I don't think I'll actually make it as a producer because you got to think, like, I had gone through the phase of now being around these people, and I knew like, oh man, I'm not at their level on the music production side. Yeah. But I know what I can do better than them is the visual side, right? I can't keep up with Danger Hands and his ability to
that's
produce.
Like a cool.
It was a good reality check.
That's a great reality check, and I think that's like a reality check that we all need. We need to be humbled and see what it really takes in whatever craft, and understand whether we have it or whether we don't, or whether we can even be that guy.
You have to be ignorant and naive, but like not so lost in your own world of ego that you also don't understand, like, bro, you got a lot of work to do.
But I think that's why every South Asian creative, whether it's Ani, whether it's you, whether it's me, right? We all go through the, I'm going to try to rap phase, right? And Ani rapped at a pretty good level, right? Like, and it's like, but eventually you realize like, hey, what can I be the top of this at? And is it the thing that I'm actually doing?
Yeah,
right?
You see where like you are welcomed and nurtured, and you take advantage of it if you're smart. And that's what happened to me. Like everybody was like coming to us for flyers, web designs, all this stuff. And this is 2006. We were customizing MySpace pages. Yeah. So like now I'm like customizing the NERD page, But MySpace, you had a top 8. So
Mhm.
our hustle was like, yeah, whatever. The NERD pays. They didn't pay us that much to do it. But like, I'm gonna put myself on the top 8. So I put myself on the top 8 of every like major MySpace we did at the time. Danger Hands, NERD, Pharrell solo page, every page we could get, clips. I'm on the top 8 of
Placement.
those. Yeah.
Placement, like marketing.
Drake's.
That's like perfect marketing placement, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, yo, again,
But it was natural,
You
man.
could
It
have been like,
wasn't.
yo, I'm gonna go take money from
Yeah.
somewhere else, but
Yeah.
the exposure that's worth is much more.
Oh, dude.
Like
I earned it. I kind of like knew that early on. Like I didn't go to school for marketing.
Yeah.
Everything I learned about marketing was sort of out of intuition and survival mode, right? So it's just like, I'm going to take what I can. I'm going to do the best I can. I've always been that dude that like was a DIY kind of guy, right?
Yeah.
Like if I don't have a camera, I'm going to figure out how I'm going to get it. If I don't have a computer, I'm going to figure out how to get it. I'm going to find a way to get these tools, big or small, and just like do what I can with those tools, right? So like at that time, we got the studio, reality's hitting us, $20, $30, $50 party flyers. It's not enough party in the world. We're not in Miami. We're not in
Yeah.
LA, New York, for this to be sustainable. Like we got a $2,000 rent, which is a lot of money in Virginia Beach.
Yeah.
And this is 15, 20 years ago almost, right? Like that's a lot of money back then for us kids. We only have like $20,000 saved up. We don't have 12 months in us even.
Yeah.
We only got 10 months to make
Leap of
this
faith.
work. Leap of faith. One day, Shay, who's part of NERD, comes up and says, yo, we kind of messed up. We did this Pepsi campaign. Pharrell designed it with BBC ice cream, this camo Pepsi can, but there's a website and we didn't read the contract that said that Pharrell would be responsible for the website too. I was like, bro, just hand that over to us. Didn't even discuss the budget. Didn't even know how much you're really supposed to get for a website. We didn't know. Like I said, we didn't go to marketing school. We didn't do any of this stuff. So we don't have the knowledge of what you're supposed to charge for all this stuff, right? We do this website. We were down to our last pennies too at this time of like keeping the studio alive. We worked for 5 days nonstop, just like on Red Bull. Like website's out. And I was always also like kind of shy about asking for money too, you know? Because I just felt like it was a little cringe to ask for payment. I know it sounds crazy. I don't know what it is. I've always been like I love to like
I think
do things for love, and
yeah.
the money thing has always been weird for me.
I think like that's like a part that every creator kind of has to go through to ask for payment. Like I've heard of so many like creatives that say
Especially
like,
I think if you're South Asian, I don't know if that's
yeah,
a thing.
there's like because it's like within our
Weird.
culture, right? Because I like know so many of like my friends that like are like do TikTok ads and things like that, and like when like they don't really directly talk about the conversation of money, right? But if you work for like a real business or anything, you know, the invoice just comes in, and like that's like the part that like it's like tough for us to go over because it's like we have to make the jump between creative to be creative and then creative as a business, right? Because it's like, okay, this is not what I do. Right? Like, because you have to make that realization. Because you started off, hey, like I'm making these flyers for fun, right? Like, of course, like there's a game plan here, right? But it's like I'm making these things because these are the homies. But then at some point it becomes, oh, there's like real money involved, and there's
I didn't even know what an invoice was. It wasn't until where finally the website is up. I'm seeing it, like you type it from whatever you see on the can. The website's working. We made this interactive, like virtual Virginia Beach video game type of website. Again, using my computer science knowledge. I'm shy, but I'm like, you know what? We got to ask for something. And it wasn't like they weren't willing to give us the money.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how to approach it. But I finally said, hey, the website is up. Who do I speak to? They're like, oh, hit up our manager. I hit up their manager. The manager's like, well, how many days did you guys work? It's like 5 days. So I'm not expecting much. I'm like, oh, maybe this would be like a few $1,000s. Like, I'd be lucky if it's $3,000. That'll get us by for like a month and a half. She's like, is 30 cool? I'm like, 30? What 30? Like $30,000. I'm like, what? And we kind of played it cool. It's like, yeah, 30,000's cool. Dude, I go to my dad. I was like, Dad, what's that invoice? And my dad's an accountant. He's like, oh, it's nothing here. Yeah, I'll make one for you. So then my dad's like, how much are you invoicing for? I was like, $30,000. He's like, $30,000? Are you sure? I was like, yeah. He's
it finally
like,
becomes really real.
yeah.
Finally becomes really real. Like that jump is so
Dude,
crazy, right? Like
that's when I was
really
like,
real.
maybe that's what corrupted me at the same time. But it's also like you got to make money. It's got to be eventually sustainable. But money is corrupting in a sense. But like, that's when you also start seeing who's around you, dude. When you're living with your parents and you just work 5 days to make 30 grand and you're only splitting it like 3-4 ways, bruh. I was like, I could actually make this kind of money. This is like money like doctors make. And I'm now telling my dad, see, Dad, like I don't have to be a doctor or like this engineer you want me to be. I can make this in a week. My dad was all right, son, go for it. Like
it finally becomes real, right? And then
yeah, dude.
I kind of want to hear like the obviously like the story from like 30,000 for a check, because then it changes like the game a little bit, right? Like there's real money involved, right? And like then what is that run like into like sustainability, right?
Dude, that run was crazy for us. This is 2006, and we are milking it now because we did this cool website. Everybody now wants a website on that level. I got airports and all these people. Now there's like, oh, we got 100K for a website. I'm like, what? I didn't know these budgets existed. Mm-hmm. To them, it's nothing. We're actually the guys doing it for the cheapest rates. We didn't realize it. To these companies that are outside of Virginia, global brands like Pepsi, like $30,000 is nothing to them for a website that's like fully interactive. Honestly, people are like, dude, that website's supposed to be like 250K or 300K, what you guys made. So you actually gave them a favor. You know, I was like, oh, cool. Well, if this is what a favor rate is, I'm down. Mm-hmm. Dude, we had a hell of a run after that. But I was stupid and naive because now, growing up also with hip hop, like that Diddy era too. You see them with Benzes and shit now. Like I want what Pusha T has. I got like 20 grand in my pocket now. My dad's like, hey, you should like, my dad being like typical South Asian dad. Yeah. He's like, hey, and he's an accountant too. He's like, hey, go ahead and like put that in like a Roth IRA or put that in like, you know, a house or something.
So what you actually do with it?
I bought a Benz.
Of course you did. Of course you did. Yeah. And
actually, no. Hold up. I didn't buy a Benz. I bought an Infiniti. And at the time, having an Infiniti was like a brand new Infiniti. Yeah. Right? I put a crazy down payment on an Infiniti. The next check came for like another 50K. My dad is like, please do not do anything stupid with this money. It's like, no, I'm going to buy a Benz. So I bought an Infiniti and then I bought a Benz. Like, who am I? Who is this guy?
Because you're at this point, how old?
I am now 23.
Yeah, bro, you cannot give a 23-year-old 70,000 in the span of like 2 months and be like, yo, don't do something stupid with it.
Bro, I was doing nothing but stupid shit.
That's why like when people talk about, and that's like an interesting part, right? Like about how you kind of approach that like long term, but like how you become prepped for that. Because I think we don't talk about that enough in this community because it hasn't happened yet. What happens when like, hey, like you're the South Asian person who doesn't know that this money is coming, and then the money finally come in, and are you able to be sustainable?
Dude, I was like a rapper. I felt like I just got like a record deal or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, rappers, I have no excuse. I actually had a dad that knew what to do. I was but I was just like around Pusha T, and these guys are driving like SL 500s. They're driving like $150,000 cars. Pharrell had a Rolls Royce. The shit that was never an allure to me all of a sudden became an allure because now
it's possible in the space that I'm in.
Yeah. And now it's like, yo, I want to like, I have all this access now. Like I'm in the VIP with them. I want to look cool, and you're young, naive. You want to be like, one of them, now you're looking at them like a peer. Little do you know, there's a big difference between what Pharrell is making, which is like 50 million, and I'm making like maybe 100K that year.
Yeah, but we fuck a lot of that up on the process up, right? Because like we fuck that up where we never allow ourselves to get to that space because of the things that you're talking about, right? Like those like status traps. Like I see so many people like that are like, again, I'm 27, right? There's people that are above us in our peers, right? But like they're not really our peers. They've set up like real businesses. It's like, they have real checks coming in.
Yeah.
And then when you see like other people starting off trying to compete at that level, it's like you haven't worked your way to compete at that level.
And it's funny because I think every era has their like way of flexing, right? So now I'm in my flexing era. But the way we flexed, again, I'm gonna age myself, is my profile picture is me with 2 luxury cars. Mm-hmm. And just like the craziest SB dunks, like, like, oh, cool. Like, this is like, I made it, And
but at least you came up from the era where you had to at least those have to be your cars.
Yeah.
We came up in the era where, yo, I just rented the 2 luxury vehicles.
Right.
And that's a huge fuck up too.
Either way, like I was lost, man. I was lost and I didn't see what was coming, which was the recession. 2008 hits. What people don't also realize is when the recession was happening, the industry was also collapsing.
Mm-hmm.
People didn't know how to monetize streaming yet. Mixtapes were happening. People were buying less records. So those record label budgets we were starting to get started to die. And something happened in that year of 2008. So like I had that little run for 2 years, living this life of luxury, going to parties, throwing parties. I didn't drink. I never drank. I'm a good Muslim boy.
Yeah.
I never drank, but I was buying drinks for my friends in the VIP.
Mm-hmm.
I was buying drinks for people that I thought were friends. You know, everybody's there when you have it, you know? And when you don't have it,
Hit you like a truck.
dude, it hit me like a truck, dude. When I didn't have it anymore, I couldn't pay my my friends or the people that were working with us like weekly anymore. And when I'm in the student, and I got so much confident that I thought, oh, we should have a second studio, and we did.
Yeah.
Dude, now the recession's happening. I'm stuck with 2 studios. There's no business. The money's all dried up. And also, we were stupid. We didn't realize that so many independent artists were just drug dealers. Like, this could be a movie.
Yeah, how much street money is actually in hip hop?
Yeah, I didn't know. So, like, all the indie artists that were just throwing money at us, I had no clue where it came from. I didn't want to know that it was dirty money. And that recession happened, and everybody we knew around the Clips got indicted, except for the Clips. And when those indictments started coming, like I said, man, this shit sounds like a movie. Like I was living that Breaking Bad life now.
Yeah.
Not realizing it, but like my life was like a movie.
Yeah.
And now looking back at it, like this is great because I got stories to tell, like that I'm gonna be telling.
Yeah.
You know, like because I want to get into films now, taking those steps. But like when that happened, I got humbled. But my parents were just like, looks like you have to go get your master's.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, like anything but going back to school. It's like, yeah, maybe you just like study something else. Maybe go into chemistry and be a doctor or something. I'm like, what? I was like, now I'm lost. And my parents, you know, South Asian parents, they're pressuring me like, dude, you're getting older. You got to get married.
Yeah.
And this is not going to be possible.
Yeah.
If you're like some jobless dude with like.
Sorry, Saz. Are we at 5? Okay.
Oh no! I'll try to like cut this quick.
You're good.
I'll try to go through this quick then.
No. Yeah, I just want to. Sorry, Shomi. I do this thing at the end of every podcast where I ask like the guests to like call their shots, something that which I think kind of goes into like the conversation we were about to have, something that they want to make happen in the next like 3 to 5 years, right? Whether professionally, whatever have you, right? So I'm gonna ask, like, Shomi, call your shot.
The next few things that I want to do, this sounds stupid, but like be the best dad I can be. Honestly. Okay. Like it's not career oriented as much these days.
Yeah.
But if we're talking career wise, I want to like make movies. I want to make television shows because we still have stories to tell. Because like a lot of our stories that still come out is from an older generation of like the immigrant struggle that you see. Like a Disney Plus show will come out or something will come out. And we've told those stories now. And I think there's plenty more stories like that that are changing. But like now I want to show like what it is to be us in this era, right? So like I said, I was telling you guys earlier, stuff I went through. For me, the best content comes from the heart and comes from the stories you've lived. And so I want to now be able to put that on the big screen. I want to be able to put that on television, you know? So my goal is, you know, just, I'm also at a phase where like, I'm not motivated by money. I'm motivated more by like going back to where I started, the passion of creating and telling stories. That's always been like the root of.
It's no longer about the money. It's like, it's like a weird like cycle, right? It's like first, it's like starts off so pure and so creative. And then it becomes, I got to make the bag. Yeah. And then it finally returns back
I'm back at that like place of purity. I'm like really excited.
Back to like the love of the game, right?
Yeah, like I'm finding myself losing sleep over like finding cool tutorials, or finding new cinema techniques. I feel like a student of the game again, which I was, when I first started. And you should never stop learning. But like that's my goal. I mean, I have so many goals too, right? Like I just came back from Bangladesh, and my dad has. My dad is like my hero, like he's done a lot, and I see all the charity initiatives he's doing, and my goal is also to be able to keep those going. It was an eye-opening experience because I'm like, man, I would not be here if my dad didn't have the education, and my dad is helping, like build more schools and classes and free clinics and things like that. And my dad is at a great place now financially, and he could be buying Rolls Royces and stuff like that, but that's not what makes him happy. And that's inspiring to me. He's happy when he can help. And for me, I just want to continue that legacy, of what my dad is doing. And so like, we have our like superficial goals, and I'm kind of over that now. Look, I've gone through my Jiggy era a few times of like wanting to floss and flex. That shit means nothing to me anymore.
Right. Nah.
Like
I think it's like it is like the kind of creator journey, right? Like once you get to make it, right? Yeah. I think a lot of us like don't get to like actually see it out because we're still in the process of like, yo, we gotta make it because we gotta find that out for ourselves, right? We gotta find out once we get the money, the status, right? Oh, like this isn't actually what I wanted or whatever, right? Shomi, appreciate you doing this, brother.
No, I thank you for having me.
Absolutely, yo, thank y'all for listening. Peace.
I could go on forever.